Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. I am excited to see that you're many returning faces and many new faces. And I was inspired by what I heard this morning, and I want to offer a special thank you to the Provost for opening and welcoming the event, to the Vice Provost for offering words of encouragement, for Vice Provost Perez for continuing with the effort and our support and our collaboration with the students, and we'll hear from Vice Provost Willis shortly. As I reflect on what we were hearing this morning, I'm encouraged. Encouraged because that when we started this effort 3 years ago, neurodiversity was relatively a new term that people would say to us, I don't know what that is, I'm not quite sure. And as we've been growing our conversations and our efforts and our persistence in the space, more and more people are following us and asking, how do I get involved? Where can I help make change? Entrusting us with their stories, telling us of their challenges. And so through that process, we thought it was really valuable to platform individuals and hear their stories because the stories are powerful. The struggle is powerful. And through that struggle, I feel like they can impact a larger audience, a larger environment for change. So as we've been growing this effort, yes, we've been working locally at the university, trying to work with our students and getting more traction on topics. We've also been working with local collaborators, which I'll introduce shortly, and we've been working with global partners. And so right now, I'd like to kind of pivot to one of our global partners, Matt Harrison, who is joining us from Australia, from the University of Melbourne Neurodiversity Project.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Can you hear me okay, Sandy?
We hear you. We don't. There you are. Wonderful.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning. It's actually 11:06 p.m. here at night. So I've got my cup of coffee ready to go here, and I'm proudly wearing my University of Michigan hoodie because we are entering winter. We've had summer, and summer's long gone now. We've got very cold weather outside, by our standards, not by your standards. Thank you very much. I'm just going to speak for 15 minutes this morning and just talk a bit about an update on our University of Melbourne project and just discuss why it's so important that we have this global network that Sandy was talking about, and why it is so important that we learn from each other, because we've got on a very, very similar journey. And I remember meeting many of you 2 years ago now at the University of Michigan and being so impressed with the work that you were doing, but also feeling like coming home in a way, because we're on different sides of the world, but we're having the same journey in many ways. Before I give the update on our project and what's happening in Australia and talking about the Higher Education Neurodiversity Network, I do just first want to quickly celebrate our First Nations Australians as well. I'm a teacher by trade, so I'm very proud that I get to build on 65,000 years of teaching in my country with our First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and learning from those traditional knowledges and celebrating those people as part of the work that we do at my university. So today I'm going to briefly reintroduce myself. I do know many of you, I'm sure. And then I'm going to talk on the two key projects that I'm lucky enough to work on. One is our University of Melbourne Neurodiversity Project, and one is this idea of a higher education neurodiversity network, which we're so excited to work with the University of Michigan and lots of other universities as well on this project. So, hello, I'm Matt. I'm a teacher. I'm lucky enough to have worked, around the world and worked right from our kindergarten age, which is terrifying, working through to teaching year 11s and 12s. Funny enough, year 11s and 12s are quite similar to our kindergarten kids in many ways. Having to remind them to bring a pen to class is always a good experience. I am a associate professor in learning intervention. What that means is I get to work in research and working with school teachers about how to support neurodivergent students in the classroom. And that's really my background. I was lucky enough a couple of years ago to be asked to come and help support some of our undergraduate students And it really helped me to be able to understand the scale of challenge that many of our neurodivergent students were having, and also to better understand some of the challenges our neurodivergent staff were having as well. I'm neurodivergent myself. I'm an ADHDer, and that really shapes my passion for this area. So when we talk about why Beautiful Minds means so much to me as a conference, here's a photo of Jess, myself, and Sarah presenting 2 years ago. It really is this idea that as a society or as a world, what we really want to do is to reshape some of these neurological differences and really think about how we can celebrate neurodiversity to be able to make sure that everyone's getting what they need to have a chance. When I talk about what I hope we collectively achieve through the neurodiversity movement, it's really giving people a chance to run the race. I'm not suggesting that people, should be getting guaranteed positions anywhere, or they shouldn't be, they shouldn't be getting what some people might see as unfair advantages. What I really want to do is just creating a world where every neurodivergent person has a chance to have a high quality education, and that includes in higher education too. And for us, neurodivergent staff members, whether we're professional staff members or academics, I think it's also finding a community where we can feel safe and to be ourselves, where we feel like we're valued, and to be able to find that community. I think that's just so important. So that brings me nicely to our update on our neurodiversity project in 2026. We've been going for 3 years now, which is a long time. It seems very short some days, but the other days it seems very, very long. We need some of those therapy dogs in Melbourne some days. So just to give you some context, I am based in Melbourne, Australia, not Florida. So we've got about 5 million people in our city. Our university, the University of Melbourne, is the second oldest university in Australia. We have about 54,000 students, including about 20,000 international students from over 130 countries around the world. And we have about 10,000 staff members. So we're a pretty big university in Australia. I have the absolute privilege of working with my colleagues, Dr. Jess Reed and Dr. Sarah Templey, who you may have met. We joke about how the Neurodiversity Project has aged us. I like to think that I've been less aged by it than Sarah and Jess. They do some amazing work and wish they could be here tonight, but unfortunately they've already got pre-existing appointments. So I'm representing the team tonight. Our project really started from research that was looking at how we, as a university, were supporting students in teaching and learning spaces by having sensory-friendly spaces. And what we found was that, yes, for many of our neurodivergent students, there were sensory barriers to access. But what we found more concerning was there were cultural barriers. And that really, really made me sad. As a neurodivergent academic, I had wonderful support from my supervisor and my team. But a lot of my colleagues and a lot of our students were saying that they didn't have that same experience and they didn't feel welcome at our university. And that actually really made me sad as a teacher because if you don't feel safe and you don't feel like you belong in your community, it's going to make learning or doing your job much, much harder and much less enjoyable. So I really, this is about 4 years ago now, really just, decided this is the work that I wanted to be doing. So we were lucky enough to have an opportunity to lobby our university vice chancellor or university president at the time. And we proposed a neurodiversity project, very similar to the University of Michigan's project. And we were absolutely stunned that he decided to fund us. And for 3 years, that has funded Jess and Sarah. And that, as academics, they lead all the research here, or lead a lot of the research. But they've also been wonderful advocates in building a network across our institution of neurodivergent students and staff. I'm just going to share what we've been doing over the last couple of years and where we've focused our attention, and also what we've learned from the University of Michigan and other partners along the way. So we're really focused on 4 main areas: education and policy and research and community. In terms of education, we really wanted to look at universal design because we knew that only about 60% of our students had formally disclosed that they were neurodivergent and therefore could access what we call academic adjustment plans. So we wanted to make every class a safe and enjoyable experience for all students. And a lot of the supports that we put in through universal design and through shaping our teaching and learning practices were based on the assumption of essential for some, harmful for none. And the idea that neuro-inclusive teaching and learning actually benefits everyone in the class, including the teaching staff. We looked at things like policy as well, and things for our staff in particular about workplace adjustments, the types of supports you could access, but also the types of policies, how we could remove barriers for things like parents of neurodivergent children or children with disabilities to make it so they could, have more flexibility in their work day to be able to go to appointments, medical appointments for their children or people they're guardians for. So we really looked at these bigger barriers that people were experiencing and thinking about how through policy we could tweak and change those policies just to make it so everyone could get what they need. Research, we really thought research as a research intensive institution really had to drive what we're doing. University of Michigan is like University of Melbourne. We do take our research rankings very seriously. And so we wanted to become a global leader and partner with other universities like the University of Michigan in doing really cutting edge research. And Sarah and Jess have led that work. They've been very, very dedicated and have done some amazing work, particularly around student needs analysis surveys and staff needs analysis surveys. And that's what Sarah and Jess presented 2 years ago. They presented that earlier at work. And the fourth focus for us has really been around community and really thinking about how we can create a community where we find each other, neurodivergent students and staff, and just realizing that we're not alone has been personally really powerful for me, but it's also helped us to be positive and to create a space where we can become each other's solutions to the problems we experience, but also just have that moral support as we go about advocating for what we see as better outcomes for everyone. So I'm not going to talk about everything that we've been able to do, but I will touch on a few key things today across those four themes. Education, we've been lucky. We had this wonderful inaugural research symposium. We were inspired by Sandy and Kathy and the other people who work at University of Michigan's Beautiful Minds Conference back in 2024. And we thought, right, we need to have a symposium very similar where we're celebrating neurodivergent research across our university. So we hosted our inaugural symposium. And then this year, we're lucky enough to be one of the co-hosts for the Australasian, so that's Australia and New Zealand, Autism Research Society conference at the University of Melbourne. But we know neurodivergence includes lots of other neurological differences or neurotypes. So we want to make sure that we have conferences that are talking about lots of other flavours of neurodiversity, if you will. We've really put a lot of emphasis into workshops for supporting our staff to be able to implement universal design for learning. And it's not just understanding about how we can change assessment tasks, but it's the way we do things like group tasks and how we look at placements and all these different areas and how we can use the research to be able to guide those policy those changes in our education practice. We've had a massive review of our student equity and disability services. I've been lucky enough to be involved in that and looking at the implementation. We have had a big, substantial budget increase in our student equity disability services because we did know we needed to put more funding into that. And it's been a real privilege to be able to work on that and to be able to hire, to employ student advisors who have both professional experience but also lived experience in neurodivergence to be able to support our students. Our research, a real highlight for us has been able to work with international organisations such as the University of Michigan and to be able to look at how we can synchronise our research agendas and how we can work together. that has just been an absolute privilege for me to be able to do that work with people like yourselves. And the community, I'm going to talk about the higher education network in a minute, but just having a local advisory group has been so important, and having community events and community spaces, and having people be able to share their story through short video vignettes has been wonderful. Uh, we've been able to do some really cool collaborations, and just I wanted to highlight a few things that are happening right now. We're lucky enough to get some media attention for the work around what we call COIL, which is our Community of Inclusive Learning. And that's been a network set up by a whole lot of different people across the university about how we can support students with disability and neurological differences right in all areas of our teaching and learning programs. And that's just had a massive buy-in from our staff. It's really grassroots. It's people who are sharing things that they've been experimenting with and trying, and be able to share those resources with colleagues, and doing things like what we call +1 pledge Oscars, where people just try to change one thing to make their class more inclusive, and they share that, and then we have an awards ceremony at the end of the year. And that's just so many of our University of Melbourne colleagues have bought into that and have done some great work. The other really exciting thing is we have an interdisciplinary subject starting, and this is inspired by a subject that Lawrence Flung, who spoke here 2 years ago at University of Stanford, was part of setting up at Stanford. We realised that we too, like Stanford, would like to have a subject where people were using the data from our neurodivergent needs analysis surveys for our students and staff, and having that as part of a subject where we share that data and talk about neurodiversity from a biological, psychological, and sociological perspective, and bring in people from our schools of medicine, dentistry, and health sciences, academics from our School of Engineering, and academics from our School of Education, and really think about what does an interdisciplinary approach to supporting neurodivergent students look like, and using real data to identify challenges, but also to make a design and conceptualize neuroaffirming supports for our students and staff as part of the university subject that any undergraduate student can take as an elective. So this is really exciting. It's launching this year. It's been the work largely of Sarah and Jess, and it's just so exciting to see that this subject taking off, available to all 55,000 of our students. And finally, we've got our higher education neurodiversity network. University of Michigan is part of that. Sandy's been a wonderful sport in getting up at all hours to join our meetings. But this network, we were looking to run events and to form research collaborations. We're really excited to be launching a website later on this year that will formalise this, and just having a space where we can all share our teaching and learning resources on a global scale and learn from each other. We've got members from Asia, members from Europe, members from the US and Canada, members, I believe, from South America, and of course, Australia. I am super excited to be able to expand this network. If you'd like to join it, this link will take you to the LinkedIn page. That's our primary mode at the moment. We are getting our website established, but we're really excited to launch some Higher Education Neurodiversity Network events later this year. Thank you very much for having me. I'm I think we've got a bit of time for questions now. So I'm just going to put my contact details up on the screen. If you would like to contact me, here is my email address. Please reach out. Very happy to talk with you. And thank you very much for having me tonight.
Thank you, Matt. Questions? Oh, come on, you guys have a question. Up here in the front.
Hi, thanks so much. This is Angela Dillard. I'm the Vice Provost here for Undergraduate Education and Access and Opportunity. And I really love the project a lot. I love the sensibilities that guide it. I love the universal design. I mean, I think it's just a really valuable set of ideas. So my question is, are you working with other groups on campus, like a well-being collective, which is something that we have here, or an office that's looking at what we would call first-generation students who are Pell eligible, so students across a wide spectrum of different kinds of access and opportunity needs. And I'm wondering if you're finding collaborations or intersections that you found valuable there to meet the needs of your university or universities across the network. But thank you so much for the work and for the comments.
Oh, thank you, Angela. Yeah, Sarah Timpley's work, Dr. Sarah Timpley, my colleague, has done some amazing work around that intersectionality, around all sorts of labels of difference or historical marginalisation. And what's really interesting is, and I think you've said it so well, that alluded to it so well, that a lot of our students aren't just neurodivergent; they have other needs, other identities. And what's really interesting is that we do work with our widening participation team, and we look at supporting neurodivergent students who are also First Nations Australians, or look at how we can support our international students who are also neurodivergent. And that become, added layers of complexity, because there are barriers for particularly our international students getting a diagnosis because they can't access what we call Medicare, which is our public health system, without a lot of trouble. So that means that they can be very expensive, and that creates all sorts of barriers. There's also cultural barriers. And so we have a really great group in that advisory group of people who have lots of different experiences. We've got people who are professional staff in the wellbeing space. We've got people who are working in that widening participation space. We've got people from our admissions team. And what's really cool is the fact that because that advisory group, we're all neurodivergent, it means we also have that professional, we all have our professional roles. We also have that lived experiences. So we are quite comfortable, in a friendly way, challenging each other. And I've been challenged by colleagues before who've, really helped me to better understand why some of my assumptions may not be accurate. So we do have a really great team in that space, and that's made this possible.
Thank you, Matt. Another question?
Hi, Matt. Thank you for all the work you do again. I was wondering, as someone with K through 12 experience as well as the university experience, can you speak to some of the differences in support that you've seen in both of those sort of networks? Is there a way that we should be supporting that transition? Is there something that one system does better than another? What are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. And we have a lot of data about this in Australia. We have a big challenge with a lot of neurodivergent students having what we call school can't or school attendance crisis at the moment. And that's because a lot of students, because of mental health challenges caused by inaccessible systems, stop going to school. So we know that our school systems have put in a lot of work to create safe, predictable environments for our neurodivergent students. And really one of the sad reasons why our former Vice-Chancellor was so supportive of this subject is we were seeing in undergraduate courses our neurodivergent students dropping out at much higher rates than our neurotypical students. And so while K to 12 schooling had made a lot of effort to put in place things like individual education plans and to build relationships with neurodivergent students, the university sector wasn't doing this. And my university, we put our hand up and said we were particularly bad at this. So what we do is we looked to what was happening successfully, particularly in high schools, in terms of building those relationships, having someone who's responsible for supporting those students and having a relationship with those students, and really prioritise putting resources there to make it more like a high school experience for those students. Because we know a lot of our students are leaving home for the first time to go to university. They're coming from regional and rural areas of Australia. We're a big country. And for people making that transition, that first 6 months can be really, really difficult. So we wanted to get in place some of those supports, learning from what high schools have done, to be able to increase attendance and participation by our neurodivergent students.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else? Any questions online? Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Hi, Matt. My name is Kristen Bergard. I'm from the School of Public Policy here at University of Michigan. And I thought that was really interesting that you did an analysis of staff and what would help them to perform better. And I was wondering if that information is available.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah Timpley led that work. I just want to be really clear that Dr. Sarah Timpley led that work. And there are recordings and a couple of papers published from her data set that is really, really fascinating. I don't want to give away spoilers, Sandy, but the things that would help the students, staff say that actually would help them as well. A lot of those things that actually students say, things like, increased flexibility, staff say, well, that actually would help me as well. And the things that that neurotypical staff say they would like to have as a flexible work conditions are the same things that our neurodivergent staff would call accommodations and adjustments. So that's why we're so focused on universal design. We say essential for some, harmful for none. Changes we've made around interview processes, around performance development reviews, have been universally welcomed by staff, regardless of whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical, because we're giving them to everyone. Things like giving interview questions in advance, things like having sensory-friendly spaces for our performance development review conversations, because they're already stressful enough. Those simple things can make a big difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? No?
I'm very sad, Sandy, that I won't get to see the therapy dog. So I probably will have to go to bed.
I will have
they
them here in
arrive.
July when you come.
I am, yes. If you'd like to grab a coffee, you probably have 600 people there right now. I'll have to book 600 coffees when I come over. But I will be over in July. So hopefully see everyone soon.
And I think I'll have a busy schedule for you. We have a broader audience, so we'll have a bigger schedule for you to meet people and have you kind of share the work and what we're building together as well as individually. So thank you, Matt.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Have a good evening.